Safety Task Force podcast is arming you with the necessary tools to combat safety in our fast-paced, dynamic world. Our interviews bring you the latest and greatest safety solutions from industry experts. If you're new to the industry or looking for ways to expand your knowledge and stay up to date with global safety trends, this podcast is for you. Welcome back to another episode of Safety Task Force. This week, we have Jeff Smagacz from Marsh with us. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, good morning. How are you today?
I am doing well. How about you?
Good, thank you. I appreciate you having me on your podcast.
Absolutely. We're excited. So, Jeff, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your role at Marsh.
Much appreciated. I'm an engineer. I'm an ergonomist. I've worked with 85% of the top 1,500 global companies. I'm a lean practitioner. I'm a Six Sigma black belt. I lead Marsh's global ergonomics practice of 12 professionals. I've worked in specialty consulting. I was a business owner for about 11 years. And for the past 4 years, I've worked for Marsh, who was the world's largest insurance broker. And my role at Marsh is leading a team of great ergonomists to identify, understand, analyze, propose, and solve client challenges. Our goal is to be really good problem solvers that drive comfort, safety, quality, and production efficiency.
Today, I kind of wanted to talk about what we've experienced here over the last few months. So our workplace has experienced quite the shift. So much of our workforce went to work from home without really knowing when they'd be able to return to work. So what are some things that employers should be concerned about with this change to work from home?
Great question. Can I go forward by going backwards a little bit? I want to just let people know that, the work from home trend has been going on for over 15 years. We've actually seen since 2005, 173% growth in work from home, which puts over 5 million people working from their home at least part of the time. And, of course, what that means is it was roughly 31% of the U.S. population working at home in some capacity. And with the pandemic, that jumped immediately to 62%. So working from home did start a while ago, but we are in the throes of it now. Some people were they were set up to work from home full time. I know, Emily, myself, I've worked it from home for a long time. Many of my colleagues do as well. So, we were prepared. And we have, I think, what we need to be successful. There are a lot of people that have worked at home maybe part-time, 1 or 2 days a week. And so this definitely caught them off guard to be there full-time. Still, there were others that had to transition quickly from 0 to 100% working from home. And this is just the United States. If we look globally, Europe, 6 out of every 10 people had never worked from home before. And even over, if we go to India, more than 90% of the IT industry had never worked from home either. So yes, this has definitely affected everyone to this point, and it's definitely been challenging. We do know that post-pandemic, work from home will continue, and a lot of the tech industry is leading that charge. Facebook and Twitter and Microsoft and Square have already announced that they're identifying ways to have their employees work from home full time. So that, this is something that we've seen previous to this point. Some people were ready, some weren't. But as we do go forward, you're right. This is something that I think will become a new normal for a lot of folks. But to answer your question, what are some things employers should be concerned about? I think the first thing is communication. Actually, I'd even say over communication. Businesses are bringing back employees in different ways. At times, maybe only to send them back to work from home as the pandemic numbers begin to rise. There will definitely be confusion. over protocols, and especially compared to what other companies might be doing. Also, what they may have perceived as short-term, being working from home for 1 to 3 months, is now leaning to longer term, in whatever the definition of that means. But that definitely has to be communicated by the company. So communication. And during the communication is they have to remember to demonstrate caring and empathy. They have to take advantage, companies have to take advantage of the technology and the communication channels that exist. Videos, microlearning, texts, daily doses of connectivity with their employees, leveraging the technology that they have. And we also have to think about, being an ergonomist, we have to consider ergonomics as well. That's going to be something employees need to be concerned about with this change. Physically, we're expecting, Emily, that ergo claims the estimate is they'll probably rise 10 to 16%. We don't know yet because this is so new. We don't have great data, but that's the prediction. We've already seen a 73% increase in mental health stress or anxiety. So we know that we do have to make sure we are concerned about things like the physical workstation design, the mental stress aspect as well. And we could chat a little bit more about that later too.
Okay. So as employees are finding themselves in the position where they're staying home, do you have ideas for them about what they could do to set themselves up for success?
Another great question. The answer is yeah. You say, what can employees do to make sure they're setting themselves up for success? I think there's a lot of different aspects of that. There's, first is, as people work at home, they have to have great education. They have to know what their workspace is. The first question is, where are you going to work? And so they're finding that 53% of people working from home actually have an office. But the second most common place people work is not the kitchen table, it's the couch. That's 20% of the people. And then 17% of the people work from their kitchen table. First and foremost is people need to choose a great workspace. Where are they going to work? I mean, that's important in the decision to go forward. They need to look at things like, okay, once you decide where you're going to work, a place that you can reduce distractions, you can make sure you're productive. There was a recent study that people said that they're more productive working from home.
Sure.
And the thing is you're right. They believe they are because they don't have to drive to work and drive home from work. So they're buying back all the commute time. So they are getting the same amount or more work done in a day. But if we look at per hour productivity, they're actually getting less done. Does that make sense?
It does.
And so that's a challenge. So we have to figure out a place to work, and we have to establish a routine. The routine that you would drive to an office, work in an office, then come home. We have to keep a similar routine, get up roughly the same time in the morning, go through the same rituals, try to end the day at the same time, because we have to generate a good work-life balance. There was a study that came out by Chubb recently that 83% of all work from home employees during the pandemic, 83% are working longer hours than they did pre-pandemic. So that tells us that people are not finding a good work-life balance. Because it's how easy is it for you, Emily, to say, hey, I'm just going to go check one more email. And then suddenly someone's coming into your workspace and saying, Emily, are you going to come join us and watch that movie or for dinner or whatever?
Exactly.
Yeah. We do have to consider others from our house too. We have to create boundaries. That's important working from home. When can you be interrupted? When can't you be interrupted? When can you interrupt others? Because there's probably multiple people working in your household. Could be a spouse, could be a child, could be children. It could be elder care that you may have. And so there's definitely consideration for others in the home. including pets. If we think about pets too, when can they and shouldn't they be in the workspace? While it's all fun and games on Good Morning America, when Lara Spencer has her dog in her lap, that's fun. But during a pretty strategic, maybe budget call, it can be very distracting.
Sure.
We have to find a good place that minimizes the distraction, including noise. And of course, we just have to make those decisions, figure out kind of what's best for us and what's not best for us. We do have to stay connected while we are working at home. That lifeline to our manager, to our colleagues. We've seen a 41% increase in self-reported isolation. People feel like they're lonely. It increases anxiety and stress. There's been a huge increase, Emily, in the number of phone calls to the EAP, the Employee Assistance Programs, saying, hey, I'm having trouble coping with this. And so going back to a previous statement, communication becomes pretty important. A couple other things that we need to do to make sure we're successful working at home is we also, while we are working, we have to make sure we take micro breaks. We have to make sure that we're breaking throughout the day too, because micro breaks are short breaks. While you're working, Emily, instead of sitting all day, you have to stand up.
Mm-hmm.
Stand up and be on a phone call, sit down, work at your computer. But micro breaks are short bursts of time where you change your activities. You should take rest breaks. Every hour, you should get up and move around and take a walk, and, definitely don't eat lunch at your desk. Go somewhere else, do something different. Move around the house throughout the day. If you work in the morning in your office, spend some time at a standing workstation in your kitchen, at your counter. You can move to your couch or your chair, but definitely we joke in ergonomics that your best posture is your next posture. And so just making sure you're being mindful of, moving around and taking these breaks. And there's even something we talk about, the 20-20-20 rule. It's every 20 minutes, you should look at something 20 feet away and blink your eyes slowly 20 times, just to reduce eye strain and fatigue. Because everything we do today, Emily, we're staring at a screen. Whether it's your iPhone or it's your laptop or it's your tablet or it's the TV, we're always visually engaged in what we're doing. So those are some things, I do have to say two more things if you'll allow me. So education's great. Good habits are great. We have to stay connected. We have to take micro breaks. We need to get enough exercise and rest. And this large study done by Chubb Insurance said that 82% of the work from home population right now is getting less exercise and eating more. That's an interesting statistic. We're home. We should be doing more exercise. The eating more too is we're snacking more. So we're getting all those empty calories and we're sitting longer. So of course we're burning less and we're probably going to gain more weight, leading to more short-term and long-term health problems.
Exactly.
So it's been really, really interesting. So there's a lot. You just have to be aware. Be aware. Be engaged, be in charge of your workspace, make sure you're staying engaged with people. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, some of the points that you touched on. So as you kind of mentioned, I do work from home, and then my husband shifted to work from home through this. And after work in the evenings, I head to the CrossFit gym and I coach. So it was quite the transition being at home. The gym shut down, and interacting with all of our gym members and keeping people active and reminding them how to eat healthy versus constantly snacking because it's there right in front of your face. So
it's there. Yeah. And you know what? In the tires that you flip at CrossFit aren't.
Exactly.
If you think about it though, we're a society of convenience, aren't we?
Definitely. Yes. Those habits have been crucial in success.
Exactly. When you're at CrossFit, the convenience of doing an exercise is there. The pantry isn't. Working from home, the pantry is the convenience.
Yep.
The gym. It's been interesting. We were very new on data, though. One interesting thing, a study from Mercer, who's a benefits company, they actually did a study to find that working from home safely, and they defined that people are working in a dedicated home space. They didn't say home office, they said a home space.
Right.
And they asked a bunch of workers, they said, what actions have you taken to make your home workspace more comfortable or efficient? And 43% of the people, this was the most number of respondents, said they've done nothing. The way to be safe is to be in charge of your own safety. And if 43% of the respondents, of 866 respondents, said they haven't done anything, then it has to roll back up to the employee to say what's the employee going to do to make sure. So,
Sure.
But it's hard to push a rope.
Yes. So now we're kind of reaching a point where employees are actually returning to the office, some, right? So are there any concerns from that aspect that we need to be aware of, like as we transition back to work?
Another great question, Emily. Yeah, people are returning. And, again, I would say communication. What precautions is the company taking? This is top of mind for many employees. What to do if not feeling comfortable returning, the employee's not feeling comfortable. Asking employees how the company is doing and what more can be done. So it's engaging them in the conversation. Explaining the employee's role in returning to work, as well as having that same level of rigor when outside of work. So I think communication is going to be so critical returning to work because of the unknowns. Also being open to discussion about there will be some higher risk employees, being willing to have open dialogue about the risks and be flexible on the approaches. Employees, they want to know what's going on and then have, option A, option B, option C. People, like I said earlier, people are stressed. Stress levels are high. Anxiety is high. There was another recent poll about COVID-related stresses that 85% of the employed population, and this was another large study done by Mercer, that people's stress levels have increased at least 20%. So definitely people are elevated. Make the EAP available, the employee assistance programs. Definitely companies could use the EAP as a leading indicator. Be mindful of distractions, keep focused on working safely. I think all of these things are important things to be aware of as people return to work.
So what do you recommend if employers are encountering an employee that doesn't want to comply with regulations that the company has put in place? So maybe they require people to wear masks or just something that, maybe you don't want to do, not necessarily anything besides your opinion.
I personally have not come across any employees that do not want to comply with regulations. I have not had any clients that have told me about employees that do not want to comply with regulations. But I completely understand the question, and it's a great question. Definitely, I think as companies, they need to set expectations and address non-compliance through a caring conversation. That's going to be most important, is just make sure that they understand the employee's perspective. But it's going to go back to what I said earlier about constant communication and education. And by the way, re-education on top of the education.
Sure.
Behavioral initiatives are important, and behavioral initiatives to change behaviors and to develop cultures, they have to be leadership driven. So at the top of the organization, we have to determine what employees need to do their to be healthy, to do their job safely, to make sure their colleagues are healthy and safe in the organization. And we have to communicate those expectations. We have to explain what happens if they meet the expectations, as well as if they deviate from the expectations and engage with poor behavior. So, it's going to be a lot of communications has to be driven from the leadership level. I hope I don't come across someone that's in non-compliance. I hope so far we've done well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
People and companies are doing a great job communicating.
So do you have any suggestions for keeping this safety culture going as people get more comfortable being back to work or returning to their old habits in the same space that they've been for who knows how long?
We are creatures of habit, aren't we, Emily?
Yes.
Creatures of habit. I mean, we all are. It's more important now more than ever is during these pandemic times is we need to communicate testing our safety systems. It's a real opportunity to improve leadership, especially in the area of safety. As we kind of build out these day-to-day communications, keeping a finger on the pulse of the culture continues to be critical. So it's going to be just every day being very engaged in these changing guidelines, these changing regulations. And so as far as keeping safety culture going, it's just going to be, that daily engagement, talk to the employees, communicate, listen, adjust, set expectations, and then just keep moving forward. This is new for all of us. And so one thing else I'd like to add is that a lot of companies, including the CDC and the World Health Organization, and even including Marsh, our team, we've created a playbook. And a playbook is it's a return to work playbook as people go back to work. And what happens is the question really becomes, how confident are you in your organization's readiness to bring people back to work? And so a lot of companies have developed a real practical guide to returning people to work. What does it mean to clean, disinfect, and sanitize? What does it mean? What is the protocol for wearing masks? What does our new workspace look like? I've heard this thing about staggered shifts. What does that mean? When can I go in the office? How can I host a meeting? And so all of these things are really in a lot of these playbooks. And I think employees need to be aware of them because I think it really shows the company's commitment back to safety, that we're serious about this, and we actually have a document in front of us that we're using as really kind of our guideline and our recipe to get back to health and safety in your organization. So hope that's helpful to you. Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to add to kind of finish up our conversation here today? I would just ask, and thank you, Emily. It's amazing. I hope that the people listening to the podcast are getting something out of this. This is very complex, but I think it's very simple too. Is just employees need to do what they need to do, trying to be as safe as they can. Safety is not manager's responsibility; it's everyone's. And definitely, I feel and believe and have seen that companies are doing what they need to do to really ensure safety in an organization. And to me, it's really that partnership. Is we have to move forward during these really undefined times, these really abnormal times. But I do want to leave your listeners really with a couple of questions. One is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do as an employee of your company to make sure that you're safe? What are you going to do at your company to make sure that you maintain the safety of your fellow colleagues? And then 3 is, how are you going to be a leader in your company to really drive the safety culture going forward? Because ultimately, if everyone acts in that manner, we'll have great safety across the world.
Awesome. Jeff, thanks for being on the show today. I really appreciate it and love talking about safely bringing employees back to work. So,
hey, I appreciate your time. I hope to chat again.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Have a great day.
You too. That's all for this week's episode of the Safety Task Force podcast. Thanks for listening, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at BeastAgentWM.